In this podcast episode, Scott Galloway dives deep into the economic and social challenges facing younger generations, including wealth concentration, housing affordability, the education system, and the emotional well-being of young men. He candidly shares his experiences with entrepreneurship, investing, and failure, offering sobering truths and actionable advice for economic security. The conversation also touches on the evolving dynamics of relationships, the role of tech monopolies, and the importance of societal institutions in fostering community and resilience. Scott explains that there has been a deliberate and elegant transfer of wealth from younger to older generations over the past 4 decades. Older people have figured out they can use their voting power to secure financial benefits, notably through Social Security and tax policies favoring homeowners and capital gains. The changing tax code now disproportionately benefits older cohorts, contributing to increasing wealth inequality. He highlights the stark statistics. Those over 70 are significantly wealthier than they were 40 years ago, while those under 40 are less wealthy, even less so than their parents at the same age. This intergenerational wealth gap fuels frustration and civil unrest among young people. Galloway points out that homeownership and stock market gains predominantly enrich older generations. Young adults often rent and earn income from current wages rather than appreciating assets, making upward mobility more difficult. The housing market's skyrocketing prices, exacerbated by limited new supply and demand pressures, contribute to a sense of hopelessness. He notes cultural shifts, such as rising travel and the diminished appeal of saving for a home. Moreover, institutional and investor behaviors, such as large firms buying and bundling single-family homes, inflate costs further and make affordability a persistent issue for younger buyers. The podcast critiques the university system as increasingly exclusionary, with elite institutions constraining enrollment despite large endowments, thereby entrenching incumbent advantages. Admission rates at schools like UCLA have plummeted, and the pressure to produce a tiny elite cohort of billionaires overshadows efforts to create broader economic opportunity. Galloway acknowledges the corruption and self-interest in academia, where administrators prioritize their compensation over accountability to students and society. He also compares the current collegiate environment with his own experience of easier access and far lower tuition costs, emphasizing that these changes contribute to economic inequality and limit social mobility. Despite the bleak systemic challenges, Scott stresses that there is still opportunity for young people willing to work hard and develop relevant skills. However, he urges young adults to vote and engage politically, since their low participation rates allow wealth transfer policies to persist. He discusses the effects of government stimulus during emergencies, pointing out that much of those funds ended up benefiting asset owners rather than those struggling on the ground. Galloway advocates for progressive tax reforms, including corporate tax increases and alternative minimum taxes targeting the super rich, to address fiscal imbalances and provide more economic support to younger generations. An important insight focuses on younger generations' labor on social media platforms, which operate on a sharecroppers deal, where creators generate value but the platforms capture the majority of revenue. He introduces Beehive as an alternative tool, enabling creators to own and monetize their own audiences and content directly, avoiding dependency on platform algorithms. This highlights the broader theme that young people must seek to own assets rather than merely contributing free labor to corporate platforms. Scott shares candid personal stories of entrepreneurship, rejection, and financial ups and downs. He emphasizes that success is rarely linear, noting that only 1 in 7 businesses he started thrived, and that his capacity to endure rejection is a crucial superpower. He explains his coping framework involving exercise, clean living, family support, and physical affection to manage mental health and avoid bitterness. Galloway underscores the importance of embracing failure as a necessary step toward long-term success and economic security, advising young people to cultivate grit and persistence. Contrary to popular advice about following one's passion, Scott argues that young people should first find something they are good at in a non-romanticized industry and develop mastery and economic security around it. He stresses the importance of building a savings muscle early on, starting in one's 20s, and managing spending intentionally. Diversification of investments is another key lesson Scott highlights from his own mistakes. Putting too much money into single ventures almost ruined his financial standing multiple times. The interplay of focus, stoicism, and long-term time horizons forms the cornerstone of his recommended economic strategy for young adults. The episode deeply explores a generational crisis among young men who are lagging behind women in education, economic viability, and social development. Men face neurological and societal disadvantages affecting maturity and performance in structured settings like school or dating. The decline of traditional third spaces such as sports teams, clubs, and workplaces reduces opportunities for men to demonstrate value and form lasting social connections, exacerbating loneliness, addiction, and extremism. Scott stresses the need for community, mentorship, and guardrails in young men's lives, whether through religion, national service, or group activities, as vital to reversing this trend. Scott and the host discuss the modern mating market, where women disproportionately seek economically viable partners, while men's pool of eligible mates shrinks due to these social and economic dynamics. They address the mismatch in expectations and realities between men and women, arguing that men need to have plans, discipline, kindness, and good social skills to improve their chances of forming relationships. Both encourage openness to giving dates a second coffee before deciding, emphasizing patience and persistence in the modern romantic landscape. The conversation shifts to how corporate concentration, especially in tech, has enabled monopolistic behavior that harms consumers and small businesses. Examples include dominant firms controlling most social media or retail online sales. Galloway supports stronger antitrust enforcement and the breakup of megacorporations to increase competition, lower prices, and foster innovation. He views private equity with nuance, acknowledging its liquidity benefits for some small business owners, but warning against practices that harm employees or consumers. The theme of regulatory capture and its role in stifling meaningful reform reemerges here. Scott advocates low-cost index fund investing for the majority, noting that most active managers and funds underperform after fees. He warns that passive investment fund size may influence corporate governance toward complacency, though he is undecided on whether this stasis is ultimately harmful. Galloway encourages diversification and avoiding risky hero plays, emphasizing the power of compound interest over time. He also endorses including emerging markets exposure due to the U.S. market's relative expense. The episode contrasts corporate cultures, vigorous, meritocratic firms that reward overwork and rapid advancement, versus more bureaucratic ones offering stability but little opportunity for fast growth. Scott shares his own early career experience in investment banking and consulting, recommending young people take advantage of corporate America for skills training and career clarity before pursuing entrepreneurship. The economic value of young, tech-savvy workers who are willing to work hard is framed as a key driver of corporate success in the current environment. Finally, Scott offers a nuanced view of Elon Musk, recognizing his net positive impact on technological progress and the EV space industries, but criticizing his personal behavior and leadership style as lacking accountability and setting poor examples. He notes the privileges and subsidies Musk and Silicon Valley entrepreneurs have enjoyed due to public investment, urging greater recognition of these collective contributions. Scott calls for holding tech leaders accountable while appreciating the complex realities of innovation and wealth creation in America.